Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellbite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Tuesday and the patch notes have been posted, which means it's time for us to break down the top 5 changes of patch 1320. I'll let you guys know what the biggest changes were on this week's patch and what you can be looking forward to in your coming games. 1320 is our first patch post the Worlds patch, and as a result, Riot have the freedom to ship more disruptive changes than normal. As a result, 1320 has a bunch of very spicy champion changes alongside a pretty major rework to the jungle, and we're going to be breaking all of that down in today's video. Let's go ahead and talk about the number 5 change here, which are the buffs to Ziggs. Now, this change in particular looks really small. It's just an explosion hitbox, a very slight increase, but this actually has a lot of implications for Ziggs. Bouncing Bomb is, of course, his bread and butter ability. This means that anything that makes it more reliable is much stronger. This means that if Ziggs is throwing the bomb directly into minions, he's more able to hit champions standing directly behind them. It means that there's a little bit more bang for his buck if he's able to hit clustered champions. When it detonates at the end of its AoE, it's a little bit more forgiving. There's a lot that this change does for Ziggs. And given that Bouncing Bomb is like his number 1 ability, I really think that this buff is not to be slept on. I think this will have a positive impact for Ziggs, maybe not a tremendously huge impact, but it will certainly make him feel a lot nicer to play moving forward. The number 4 change on this week's patch is the changes to Bel'Veth. Now, the pros have started to play a lot more Bel'Veth in competitive games, and they've been opting for more of a bruiser-oriented build that shortcuts a lot of the weaknesses that Bel'Veth is intended to have. As a result, Riot are tapping her down in a bunch of ways that only really the pros are going to feel. The bonus attack speed after spellcast isn't a big deal on the passive. Neither are either of the two nerfs here. These are mostly pro-oriented. In your casual games, you probably won't feel any of these, but the E change is certainly worth talking about. The damage reduction going down to scaling with ability rank means that you will feel significantly squishier in the early stages of the game, and you're going to be a lot more easily able to kill a Bel'Veth who is in her E up until she hits level 13 and finishes maxing this ability. As compensation, they have buffed up some of the damage aspects of Royal Maelstrom. She now can critically strike during her E, and the minimum on-hit damage has been increased, which is very nice changes for Bel'Veth's offensive uses of this ability. But defensively, it's going to make Bel'Veth much worse, and in general, it means that then she's going to need to itemize damage instead of just constantly itemizing durability, so she'll be a little bit worse in the hands of the pros. Generally, I think she'll be fine in casual play, but she has taken a little bit of a nerf, so certainly keep that in mind in your games. The number 3 change on this week's patch are the changes to Morgana. Now, Morgana apparently has a very high ban rate. I don't really know why. More Blitzcrank players than I'm expecting, I would guess. But as a result, Riot have been looking for an opportunity to buff her in a way that doesn't buff her sort of 2 most frustrating outputs, which are the Dark Binding Duration or Black Shield, of course. As a result, that they are buffing up her W and her R in very spicy ways, I might add. W gaining a little bit of extra AP ratio always helps, but the monster damage modifier going up also makes Jungle Morgana significantly more attractive. But the R changes are really where it's at. Gaining the bonus movement speed not only has it been increased by 5% at all ranks, but it also now grants it in all directions. The stun duration now scales with rank as well, and the magic damage has been buffed, even though the buffs on the ultimate magic damage don't look very powerful. Remember that she double dips on this because the ult hits twice, first on activation and then again after the stun triggers. So you do get to double dip on this buff a little bit. These changes are absolutely massive for Morgana. There is a very small nerf to Black Shield shipping on this patch as well. The cooldown at rank 1 has been increased. This is going to hit mid and jungle Morgana more than it's going to hit support Morgana, who tends to max this, I believe, second nowadays. But generally, Morgana is going to be feeling stronger across the board, especially in the mid and jungle positions. I think that these changes are very spicy for her and should make her feel generally better to play at almost all stages of the game. As a result, I would certainly be looking forward to seeing more Morganas in your games coming up. Moving on to the number 2 changes here, we're going to be talking about K'Sante, and there is a ton of stuff here that I'm going to be covering at a very high level because there's just a lot to talk about. Now, K'Sante has been deliberately weak in casual play for a while because of Riot's need to keep him balanced for pro play. A big part of K'Sante and mastering this champion is that he can basically kill you from full while keeping you stunned the entire time, which isn't exactly ideal. So these changes are intended to make K'Sante's damage combo much more telegraphed to let players actually react to it, but they don't fundamentally stop him from comboing off if he manages to land one of his abilities, and meanwhile he's gained quite a bit of power in casual settings. Again, to talk through this at a little bit of high level, his Q3 is no longer flashable. You can't flash during the cast animation of Q3 to make it a little bit easier to land. W now has a minimum channel time, And casting your ultimate now resets your Q stack, so you can't do something like R somebody and then immediately Q3 somebody, you go back to the Q1. That said, K'Sante has gotten a lot of buffs that actually buff him for casual play. W now has significantly better damage reduction, it actually scales a little bit better, and it always applies the full stun duration and the full dash distance, regardless of how much you charge it for, so it's just a quick tap W is actually very powerful. Obviously you can still channel it if you just want to have more time with the damage reduction, but you can just quick tap it if all you want is the damage and the stun duration. Ultimate doesn't do as much self damage. You get to keep 65% max health instead of 55% max health, which means that if you use it in an inopportune moment, it's not as big of a deal. The base damage without the wall slam has also been improved. It now does, it does do less damage overall, but if you're not getting the wall slam, it's actually more valuable for you than it was previously. And Ultimate now grants more AD and also grants you attack speed as well. And this is all on top of Q now always slowing, regardless of which form you're in. These changes in general are going to make K'Sante feel a little bit worse in pro play, and there are some areas in which this is going to feel bad. If you are a master K'Sante player, for example, he's going to feel a little bit more clunky to play. But if you're a casual K'Sante player, I actually think this champion looks very, very spicy. I think he's certainly still a champion that you can spend a lot of time mastering, and he will still be very powerful in your hands, but he feels much better as a pick up and play champion now. So I'm very excited to try out these changes. I do think that they will move the needle on his professional win rate and play rate, but also I think that this is going to be generally better for him across the board. Finally, the number one change on this week's patch are all of the changes to jungle, and there are a ton of these. Now, Riot are generally not happy with the state of jungle. They think it is too game determinative, regardless of satisfaction. It's one of the most decisive positions in the game, especially in the mid to late game, and Riot want to remove some of that power while hopefully adding some satisfaction back to the role. There are a ton of changes here, of course, but the high-level highlights for you guys. First, there is now a very small quality of life buff being added to Smite. There is now a 350 units of targeting forgiveness against epic monsters. That means that if your mouse is near the epic monster's model, but not on another target, it'll target the epic monster regardless. This means that if you have a max dex Cho'Gath standing directly on top of Drake, you can just put your mouse not on Cho'Gath, but also just near the Drake, and it will prioritize the Drake instead. This is a big deal for helping to get Smites down in complicated or otherwise messy scenarios, which I do quite like. Jungle pets no longer grant damage reduction. They've generally been nerfed all across the board. They no longer give you the DR against epic monsters. The shield on green pet has been decreased. The movement speed on blue pet has been decreased, and the red pet no longer applies its burn damage on Smite specifically. It still applies it on your abilities and auto attacks, but it doesn't do it on the Smite, which is one way in which people were using it as just sort of a free true damage nuke. That isn't going to be a thing you can do anymore. All of this basically says that jungle monsters' health bars will now scale continuously throughout the game instead of maxing out at level 11. This means that your clears in the mid to late game are going to take you a little bit longer than they would normally, and this comes as a part of these other changes that cause you to heal a little bit less each time you kill a jungle camp. Now, the missing health scaling has been generally buffed, which means that if you're on low health and you kill a jungle camp, you'll get more health back, but there is no more flat value, meaning that if you're already at fairly high health and you kill a jungle camp, you probably won't actually heal very much, and this should mean that your jungling clears will not only be slower, but you'll also be less healthy because you can't top yourself up as much. It basically is just enough to keep you going, but not so much that you get to clear the whole camps without ever taking any damage at all. This generally means that you are going to be clearing slower, and you're going to be clearing less healthy at basically all stages of the game, except your first couple of clears. Your clears 1 and 2, basically no change. Afterwards, though, you're going to be clearing slower, and you're going to be clearing less healthy, which means less golden experience for junglers overall, and it also means that they're going to be spending more time farming and less time sort of power ganking or doing other things. There are a couple of other things here as well. The poaching protection has been buffed up. This effectively means that jungle monsters for non-junglers have 20% more HP. That should make them a little bit harder for other people, non-junglers, to kill, making there a lot more opportunities for you to potentially catch them on your camps. But generally speaking, those are the only sort of quality of life changes there. This also comes on top of the Doran's items all getting buffed. This is specifically to help protect laners a little bit more against junglers trying to gank their lanes. Overall, this means that jungle is going to be a little bit weaker. You are not going to be being as healthy through your clears. You're going to be getting less golden experience overall, but it's not a dramatic change, honestly. I don't think that you're going to be significantly weaker, but it is toning back a little bit of the excesses of jungle. If you're a jungler, you will feel weaker. If you're a laner, you're going to see fewer ganks from junglers because they just won't have as much time to do it. We'll see how these shake out. I'm cautiously optimistic that Riot didn't really kneecap jungling, but certainly it will feel worse to play going forwards. But that is going to be it for me today, guys. Those are the top 5 changes of patch 13.20. Let me know what your favorite changes are of this patch down in the comments section below. There are a bunch of other things that I didn't have an opportunity to touch on, so let me know what you think of them down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.